Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for the first in a tactical breakdown interview series in which I'll be chatting to an expert on a specific player, club, game, whatever. Loads of stuff to get your teeth sunk into. And I'm joined by a fantastic guest today. It's Mr. Graham Hunter. How are you doing, mate?
Confused. People don't use the F word around me a lot. That fantastic thing threw me a little bit. Just let's prepare when you're going to chuck me an F-bomb like that. Will you, TC? Glad to be back, man. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Obviously, last time we spoke was back in January, talking about Aubameyang and Barcelona, and now things have moved on since then. And Arsenal being linked with actually bringing someone in, have been for quite a while. We're here to talk about Thomas Partey. First of all, initially, are you surprised that a move away from Atletico is beginning to materialise? Because he seems so settled in Madrid.
I agree with your latter point. He's developed. I think that a lot of players look more at new horizons, new contracts, bigger money than their development. I think that a lot of footballers, had they the patience and wisdom, either personally or around them, in order to think about the quality that you've just mentioned there, I guess then fewer mistakes would be made. Partey is an absolutely vital cog in the Atleti machine. He's a guy who will come on to talk about this. I guess Simeone has changed pretty radically as a footballer. He's used him in many different positions, and therefore I buy your argument that staying would seem logical. It would also seem logical for the club because they won't necessarily easily find another Thomas Partey, but they have solutions. They have debt, TC. That's probably the biggest thing to say, that irrespective of the money mountain that they've hauled in via the Champions League, and they have the new Champions League reward system, which has changed, if not year on year, then pretty damn near it. And the current system is just, utterly extraordinary. Atleti will be gross 70-something mil up from the season's campaign alone. But if you look at what they've been doing recently, they spent 70-something on Lamar, who was their record signing. 1 year later, they spent 100-and-something on João Felix and had to take a loan to complete that. The funding, they didn't buy him in one big gulp with a wad of cash on the table. But even to construct the funding mechanism, they needed to borrow money. So from Atleti's point of view, it's purely financial. They don't want rid of Partey. He could stay and become an extremely important part of what they're trying to build. And from Partey's point of view, I think that he'll be guaranteed better wages if he goes to Arsenal. And I fully imagine that he could think of himself as having done well in La Liga for Atleti, but without trophies. And players want better competition. I'm not telling you anything new in it. Players want more money, bigger challenges, and trophies.
Well, I can definitely guarantee him a challenge at Arsenal. Trophies is more of a question, probably around the club at the moment, for sure. A lot of people that I've spoken to are kind of struggling to see where he could fit into Arteta's new system. Because what Arteta's been doing...
You're having a laugh.
I'm genuinely... Seriously, because I'm having this discussion saying I think he fits perfectly in this new system where he's got two sort of pivot number 8s in the midfield, but in front of this back three with two wide wing backs. And either I feel that he fits with Xhaka. Now, when I tell people that he fits with Xhaka, someone tells me that he's not technical enough to play with Xhaka. Now, I personally highly disagree with the technicality side of his game. I think it's improved massively. Go on.
Out and out Partey's a better footballer.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that Xhaka has become so integral to what Arteta needs in the system that he wants of a ball-playing midfielder. Can Xhaka, because a lot of people don't really see Partey as the technical passer, how would you tell people that has how that would change their opinion of what he's
come
doing.
back. In order to construct a proper argument, I need to understand what you were saying or what other people were saying to you, because you talk about pivot number 8. Well, an 8 is an attack in the system that, the numbers broadly come from the Ajax system way back in the 70s and 80s. But, an 8 is an attacking midfielder. A pivot would be a 4. So but when you were talking about pivotal players, just describe if you name to me what you think Arteta's preferred, ideal system and structure are right now in terms of the formation and who plays in the midfield.
So
not every game, but ideal.
I feel that he plays with these two. How I would describe them as, I would describe at least one of them as a number 8, which is what I feel Ceballos is doing right now. How would you describe that?
Yeah, fine.
And then you've got Xhaka next to it, which is kind of is a weird number 6. How I would see what Xhaka's doing right now. I feel he plays with the 2 with a 3 behind because he doesn't believe in the quality of the centre backs enough to play them as a 2.
Tell me his ideal structure then. What is it? Is it 4-3-3?
So it's usually 3. It's 3-4-3 right now. So 3 centre backs with the 2 wing backs supporting the 2 midfielders in the middle, and then Saka, Aubameyang, and what has been Pepe, or it's been Nketiah and Aubameyang and Pepe. It's been different combinations. So if Partey comes into that system, he would be playing in either Ceballos' role that's currently being occupied by him, or in Xhaka's role. But you don't see it as that. How would you see him fitting into that?
Okay, so if Arteta believed, because of the composition of his defensive players and because he's not going to be able to do much in the market, I don't know if that's true or not, that he wanted to retain 3-4-3, which I presume means that Kieran Tierney is your left-sided defender, with Bukayo Saka is then much more advanced. He's left winger, effectively, where I argue, I think he's going to be, whether it's left midfield or left winger, that strikes me as Saka's best position. And Tierney is going to be a revelation for your club and your team as soon as he, consistently stays fit and builds up a working knowledge of the Premier League. I think you've bought an exceptional player and an exceptional man too. So let's say it's 3-4-3, or in my view, I'd imagine Arteta wants to get to a position where he can play 4-3-3.
Yes.
I'd imagine. Partey at Atleti, and I haven't followed his positional use for his national team, but my understanding is that it's organising midfield and going forward. Partey played right back a lot for Atleti when there were times when either Cholo Simeone reckoned that the back 4 needed more organisation, needed to be able to slip into a back 3 if the left back pushed high. So that Partey was ostensibly right back, but they could become a 3 and he would stay and the left back would be allowed room to go, often Felipe Luis. He's played centre half occasionally. It's not his best position, but he has played there. His best position, without question, is in the middle of midfield, an organising midfielder who is the gateway between defensive duties, which he does really willingly, and the ability to receive the ball under pressure and move it, not in Pirlo style or Xavi style, but move it quickly, move it intelligently and quickly so that the receive is in the right position, body position. His touch is pretty good. And the ball gets shuttled so that a pressure situation to a pressure release situation can happen in 4 or 5 seconds. That's something he's capable of. He's a footballer who, if he's played as the central midfielder, whether it be, if it's a 4, then it tends to be that your 2 in the middle, one will be told that he's got license to go and push and be box to box, and one must be disciplined and organised and defensive minded. Now, Partey can play either role, but compared to Xhaka, for example, if they were sharing a central midfielder, Partey is the one who predominantly you would like to be able to go up and down because he has goals from range. He shoots well. He often scores. He has a creative ability around the box. There's no doubt that if Arsenal buy this man, they're buying an imperfect player in that his development isn't complete yet, but a player who, number one, is very talented and strong and reasonably athletic, but who's got really clever feet. At his best, you'll see him being given difficult knots to untie, and he'll do it well, and he'll change the way in which a transition from pressure, I'm not talking about robbing the ball in transitions, but a transition from pressure can be quite quick into attack, a sort of 40-meter difference whereby things are gnarly in front of Atleti's box. Somebody maybe makes a tackle or wins, or there's a loose ball, and Partey will be the revolving door via which pressure against becomes pressure for you in favor. And nobody must make a comparison with Petit or Vieira, but this is a player who can impose himself reasonably well physically, who's got a nice passing range, and who increasingly has got a better judgment of where he should be positionally, because he's been coached by somebody. I mean, Cholo Simeone played a moderately similar midfield role to Partey, by no means identical, but there are things that they share, and therefore Cholo Simeone, if you buy this player, Simeone's done a nice piece of work for Arteta. But if you originally asked about positioning, in a 4-3-3, Partey would be your organising pivote in the middle of the three. If you've got four men in midfield and there are two pivots, then depending on who the other one is, and I'm judging based upon what you've got right now, and maybe there not being big changes in the market, then you'd probably say to Xhaka, you're the one that holds, that organises, and Partey's the one that goes. And I'll give you, I don't know how much time you spent watching Arteta as a footballer, either at Barcelona or Rangers or Paris Saint-Germain before he came to Premier League. But although Arteta probably had a cuter appreciation of nice little deft players, he was probably more creative. There are big similarities between Arteta and Partey.
I like because after watching back Arsenal yesterday against Leicester, one of the key things from that game is that Arsenal were unable to break out from their half so often. In the second half, there was a graphic that came up that Arsenal had spent 61% of the ball. The ball was 61% in the middle of the pitch, and the other percentage was all in Arsenal's third. 0% of the ball had been spent in the first 5 minutes of the second half in Leicester's third of the pitch, because Arsenal simply couldn't escape the press that Leicester were giving them. And from the way you're describing Partey, it tells me that he's going to be that player that transforms Arsenal's ability to escape that press. So transformative is the words that we've been using on the shows that Arsenal need for their midfield, is a transformative player. So that's definitely what I'm gaining from that. Final thing before we wrap up is that I can't leave the Partey talk without touching base on what happens in the other direction, because there's been links that Lacazette is wanted by Atletico. There's links that Guendouzi is also liked by Simeone. Both players are seemingly an option that Arsenal are willing to part with this summer. Guendouzi due to attitude issues, Lacazette due to financial issues, it seems. Do you think that is a worthy swap for either player? And do you think there's any credence in that swap deal happening?
The first thing to say when I'm privileged enough to be on Tactical Breakdown TC is that I'm happiest telling you what I know rather than speculating, because I know that people take, those who are committed to your club, they take these messages and they can invest a lot of seriousness in them. So whether Atleti do or don't want Guendouzi or do or don't want Lacazette, I would say that one of the reasons that they can contemplate moving Partey on, and I mean contemplate, and Partey has apparently been asking Trippier about London life, and there is no doubt in this instance that there that there are advanced contacts between at least Arsenal and Partey's people, and I think Arsenal and Atleti. In terms of fit, do Atleti need a player like Lacazette? Yes. They're short of goals. They're still short of goals. In terms of Guendouzi and the loss of Partey, Marcos Llorente has become a footballer of huge value. Again, he's not got identical characteristics to Partey in that he's much quicker, much more all action. I sort of read Adair, if anybody remembers him, running, putting out fires, collecting, and then either passing or running with it. He's got David Platt's ability to arrive around dangerous situations in and around the edge of the box. He's been played recently as a second striker because Partey and Koke have been dominating the midfield. But I don't think Atleti are obliged to go out and say, well, we desperately need automatically to bring in the deal somebody else who can play in midfield for Partey, because they have some options there. And what I would say about the construction of the deal is that Atleti want money. I said it at the beginning and I meant it. So if they say money plus somebody for Partey, I'll be gently surprised. But if they've said money plus a guy that we know we need and that deal can be done, then fine. If you were to tell me that Arsenal were packaging up two footballers as a swap for Partey and Atleti weren't getting money for it, then I'd be genuinely knocked over. I wouldn't understand it, because they're far better keeping Partey, who's a central part of this team and would be, maybe the fourth or fifth name on the team sheet every week, I think, for Cholo Simeone. And the club need money. So if this isn't financially advantageous to Atleti, then I'm going to be pretty surprised.
Informative, top stuff. Really appreciate your time, Graham. I'm sure the listeners do as well. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and what you're up to at the moment?
I'm behind you. Do you mean? Okay, virtually. Listen, when I'm not speaking to Tom on the Tactical Breakdown podcast live, I'm often to be found at what Twitter calls GH Podcast. We're about to release, I think next week, our 100th interview and the big interview. And it's an absolute screamer. It's with somebody who, I'm sad to say, made your lives absolutely awful over the last 20 years. If you want to watch La Liga TV until La Liga shut down on July 19th, then please do. Otherwise, I guess I'll see you at the Emirates and in Europe, Champions League, and the next time that I'm on the Tactical Breakdown podcast. Nice to chat to you. Hope you start enjoying your football under Arteta even more. This season, this year's record is really good. Off the top of my head, what have Arsenal done? They've only been have they been beaten 3 times or 4 times in 2020?
Yeah, it's 3. It's last 4 Premier League games besides the Leicester game. We won our last 4 games, including the Sheffield United game. 3 clean sheets after Project Restart.
Sheffield United wasn't the bonniest game at all in terms of football, but to win late and to show the character, I thought United were going to tip you out. I honestly, I think that you caught United just a couple of weeks before they were ready, and cups are meant to give you breaks like that.
I'm not
because it wasn't pretty, but to win is everything. But I've been watching what I think is it can only result from a change in daily attitude, daily work. Now, I saw the incident with Leno and Mope and Guendouzi and the Rock, and if that's the reason he's been excluded, because it ain't many months ago people were raving about Guendouzi and thinking, there's a bundle of attitude and there's somebody who can give us the teeth back. And now if Arteta said, I didn't like that, that's not enough to get him out of the club. It's got to be about reaction, daily attitude. It's got to be about behaviour. And all I want to say is that Arteta's standards and the degree to which he's willing to push people and say that that's not good. I've told you once, I've told you twice. So yeah, I told you and you've reacted well. I like you. You're getting promoted in. These kind of things are pivotal to the personality of your club. And in my opinion now, as much as you've got problems above them in terms of ownership, in terms of player selection and how to buy, which I think is a pretty fundamental problem.
Yeah.
If I mix the characters that I know and like in terms of Mertesacker and Arteta being the channels via which certain players will make breakthroughs, but the channels via which on a day-to-day basis at London Colney, which is you're still called London Colney Trinidad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The environment in which people are learning and being taught, the standards which are being set, allow you to think about, a healthy next 4 or 5 years. I think whether that becomes trophy winning or whether you fight off what looks like a really brutal push for the top 4 next season, which in my opinion as we speak is going to be beyond Arsenal as we speak.
Yeah,
transfers can change that, but you look at the competition. Okay, Manchester City being banned from Europe might be a different, let's wait and see, but the signs of behavior and attitude and positioning, work off the ball, work back once the ball is lost, the long road still to go, but I see changes. And I don't want to make this a one-man crusade for a fellow Scot. Kieran Tierney, in what he's able to lend to the team positionally, attitude, daily attitude, that winning mentality, plus the fact that he's a very good footballer. And Liverpool were in an absolute dilemma about whether to sign him or Robertson. I know because one of their staff phoned me and asked me my opinion and asked me to watch one of them in a big game against a prominent Spanish team. And Tierney's injury record has meant that I still think even the most astute Arsenal fans probably aren't able yet to glean the type of impact he's going to have on the team. And I think it's a very, very positive one. And I love listening. Watching Sacco, particularly at youth level, England youth level, I don't see it Arsenal's youth team, encouraged me. And I think now he's at or around 40 appearances for Arsenal. I don't think he's 19 till next September.
He's 18,
September 2020,
he's
right?
18, yeah. He's 18 now.
And
next year, yeah.
that. So my thoughts would be that left side, watching him play, watching the degree to which he can change positions and still at this young age look at least credible. But also listening to him the other day after who did you beat at the weekend?
It was Wolves 2-0.
Yeah, after the Wolves game, because he scored, didn't he? He had an up and down game, but he scored. And he said in an interview afterwards that he watched games back to learn, that he studied good, bad. These are tiny little morsels of nourishment that bring you an era in a season or two where you're like, look what we're like, look at our personality, look how different we are from the last 2-3 Wenger years and the post-Wenger years. I just find it encouraging.
I think what you said about Tierney embodies the attitude that I want from an Arsenal team, not just from one player. And I'm hoping that is a catalyst for everything else that happens in the squad. And I think that Arteta has created an environment of rewards and consequences. Reward for players that want to give him full 100%. Ceballos came back in after his injury, and apparently at first he wasn't doing enough to get into the squad. But you look at him now and what he's doing, and he's been a revelation since Project Restart. So
he's interesting to me because I've watched him a couple of times in situations off the pitch, just because I've been able to be in privileged positions, and you watch him, and I wouldn't judge him to be necessarily one of these voraciously intelligent footballers. A lot of it for him is off the cuff. A lot of it for him is, do I feel loved and trusted or don't I? And, I'm not calling him dim and flaky, but I think that he's although they share a nationality, his personality is nothing like Arteta's. So for Arteta, the big journey there is to get Ceballos. I don't know if the first time you ever saw a racehorse in blinkers, and you asked your bookie or you asked your dad, your mum, like, it's a story of fucking, I can't see it. No, it's blinkers. Because they've got the talent, but they need to be able to look at the line, and everything else distracts them. Once Ceballos is in blinkers, and once Ceballos learns to listen and apply what he's taught every day, you'll have seen by now there's a very good footballer in there, but he's giddy, and his ability, his saturation level for not bad behavior, but just daily comportment and tactical ideas could definitely, it should be different. You get saturated quite quickly because I'm Danny, I can do this and I can do that, and what's wrong? Look, I just did this. I know I didn't do the last 20 minutes what you told me to, but hey, look what I've done there. Well, not good enough. But what, like you, particularly given what we could see, we saw it intermittently at Betis, but at Betis he was the clever boy, and therefore he kind of allowed a little bit of leeway to do what Danny thought was best. At Madrid, coaches went, mate, I fucking told you, and it wasn't good enough. But at junior Spain level, you can see that he can make massive differences within a properly organized system, because that was a level where he felt comfortable with his teammates. They were of a similar generation. There was a very set system into which he plugged in, knew what he had to do, did it. He was given probably a little bit more leeway and liberty than others. And if he can take that mentality and just grow up a little bit at Arsenal, then you've got a very exciting footballer that can open games up for you.
It's just the big question is going to be around whether Arsenal keep him in the summer and whether Real Madrid, I suppose, are willing to.
Well, he's not. Listen, I'll tell you something. If Zidane's the coach at Real Madrid, he's not going back there.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, Tom, they've got a squad of about 356 players. Sorry, mate, but there ain't no room at the end. And I'm serious. Once you, I mean, even right now, he's probably got a first team squad of 29 footballers. And if you take back the guys who are on loan, like Odegaard, like Take, for example, like Reguilon, the squad's up in the low 30s. So Ceballos, in my opinion, doesn't have a place at Real Madrid. So it's down to Arsenal to do the deal.
Yeah, and that is always going to be the big question. And speaking of things that the big question, the big interview is definitely something our listeners should go and check out. You always give us more time than we're worth over here, Graham, so I appreciate it wholeheartedly. And as I say, as a socio, I can completely vouch for the show. It's fantastic. And it might be painful for some of our listeners, especially as Arsenal fans, to listen to this upcoming interview. But I mean, what is football without some emotional pain here and there?
You know who it is, don't you?
I have a feeling. I don't want to guess it live, just in case I'd spoil it. But
his name is Rio.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking between him or Didier Drogba. That was going to be my other guess, who has also caused us so much pain.
Yeah. One day, please. We're a small, tough little organisation, so it takes us time to get to people. But recorded already with Rio, and he, for an hour and a half, he was exceptional, breaking things down in honest, analytical, interesting ways. A really interesting man. And coming down the line is Dominic Torrent, who was number 2 to Pep at Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Manchester City. So I'm looking forward very much to chat to him. And we've got an extraordinary interview with Didier Hamann, upper sleeves as well. So I think the new season of the big interview starts next week. So tune in if you fancy it. You'll be very welcome. Otherwise, stay tuned to Tactical Breakdown.
Thank you, Graham. We'll speak to you again very soon, I'm sure.
Utubia.
Gooner.